I'm Mr. Lover Lover. She call me Mr. Bombastic, tell me fantastic. Touch me on me back, she says I'm Mr. Romantic. Call me fantastic, touch me on me back, she says I'm Mr. Smooth.
Wagwan people, it is I, SourBawss, and I bring you an OU match against QuickBobHero, who's linked me down below. And let's not waste any time and get straight to it. So let's look at team preview very quickly, shall we? Now, it seems like we're both using quite defensive teams actually. He's got a fire, water, grass combo with the Jellicent, Heatran and Ferrothorn, while I've got the anti-weather core, which is Gastrodon to counter rain, Heatran to counter sun, and Skarmory to counter sands, which is a really good core. Although people are starting to catch on to that now, so it may not work as well now. So either way, I think the big threats would be Jellicent. I need to get Toxic off with that Gastrodon. Glasgow, again, Gastrodon works really well as it does have the Ice Beam. Heatran and Ferrothorn would probably do well against my own Heatran. Well, especially Ferrothorn, since I don't have Earth Power on my Heatran, but good to play a bit of mind games. As with Conkeldurr to take out, again, most of the fighting steel types. The Infernape, not really too bold about that, since I just easily predicts what he's going to do, so not too bothered. And as well, I do think I have the advantage, as I do have a Reuniclus, which pretty much walks all over stall teams or defensive players. And the biggest threats would probably be the Latios, because I'm guessing that's Specs. But again, I've got my own Latias, so it'll be probably a speed tie. So, as for possible leads, I'm guessing Infernape and Heatran or Ferrothorn, and I think Gastrodon will work very well against all three of those. Since although the Ferrothorn does have the super effective Power Whip, I doubt he will go for the Power Whip straight off the bat. So I'm free to try and burn him with Scald. So yeah, without finally further ado, let's get on with the show. As I've stated before, I am going to lead off my Gastrodon, and he does lead off with one of the possible leads I thought he was going to do, the Olympus Infernape. He's going to go for the U-turn, and I'm just going to Scald on the predicted switch to the Ferrothorn to try and get the burn hacks. Because that's the only reason anyone uses Scald over Surf. I mean, come on, seriously now. But I do find out that the Infernape is Life Orb, which is quite... I haven't seen that for, well, probably since Gen 4 actually. Either way, I don't get a burn, obviously, I get a useless crit. So I'm just going to go for the Scald again. He does switch out into the Jellicent, predicting that. But that's good discount initiative, as I do know now that it's not Curse Body, but Water Absorb, as I'm just going to Toxic on the switch to Glasgow. I'm unsure as to why he goes for the Taunt, as I'm not sure what he was possibly thinking, but either way I'm just going to go for a free Ice Beam. Keeps going down, but it barely lives, unfortunately, and now he's just going to do some Protect stalling just to try and get some help out with the Poison Heal, since Glasgow will be very important for him later on in the match. So now he decides to switch out into his Jellicent on my predicted Ice Beam once again, since I have no reason not to go for it, as it does resist. Luckily I do not get the freeze, since I need to Toxic this Jellicent, since it will be very problematic later on in the match, and we both miss our Toxic, which is quite hilarious. For him, he was probably scared that I would switch out into my Conkeldurr to get the free Gust boost, but honestly I'd rather have this thing poisoned than get a 1.5 boost in attack from the Gust boost. Now he switches out into Heatran as I go for the Ice Beam again. The reason I went for the Ice Beam on the Jellicent is because I want to scout out the moveset. I want to see if it had Taunt, or Will-O-Wisp, does it have Shadow Ball, Scald or Surf. Just any scouting for information is always very helpful to what I could possibly do later on in the match, so I know if I can stay in this certain threat, or can I do this certain move, or will he predict something else. Just a lot of things going on in my mind right now, as he does get it frozen. Doesn't really matter in the long run. Well, no, it doesn't matter in the long run, as you'll see later on in the match, as I'm just going to keep going for the score, just getting some collateral damage. But unfortunately for me, I am dying to this Toxic, so I'm going to have to switch out sooner or later. Now as you can see so far, there's been a lot of switching around lately, as we're both just trying to get the momentum shift in our favour. And I know some people will say that stall is, or defensive play is quote unquote unfun, But for you, I say number one, fun is subjective. What I think is brilliant or fantastic, you may say it's disgusting or ridiculous, and vice versa. And two, I think stall is a really good start actually, or defensive play, which I think can be expressed in this quote, knowledge is power. Since this is very prominent, especially in Gen 4, how in the beginning of a match you would have less information about an opponent's team. You didn't even know what the team was. There was no team preview actually for all those who joined in Gen 5. And just trying to get as much information on the opponent as possible, and if you play defensively you get a little more quote-unquote wiggle room, so that you're able to find out what you can do in the long term after you find out the opponent's sets. So if you have the knowledge, you have the power to control, or you have more power to control the events that will happen later in the match. So that's what I think. Now here I knew he was going to probably stay in, but I need to get some stealth rocks up as the Latios can't get damaged by the spikes, so I need to get as much collateral damage as possible, and I know he's going to switch out into Heatran and I'm just going to roll him out. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, he does get rolled out into his Infernape and take some spikes and stealth rock damage, but because I am leech seeded, he will get some of that health back. So now I'm thinking he's probably just going to go for the obvious move right now, so I'm going to switch out into Skarmory to take the incoming close combat, and I can play this to my advantage, since even though he is not choice but is Life Orb, he will take some Life Orb damage. And now I'm thinking he'll probably go for the fire move now, or since he'll probably predict me to go for, he'll probably think I switch out into Heatran to get the flash fire boost, but I'm going to switch out into Latios, well, good grief. And I've got a Dragon Pulse, even though I do not have any special attack EVs, at -2, and if it's Frailness, easily going to take that out at that range. Quite surprised that he didn't switch out into either Ferrothorn or the Heatran to take on the incoming Dragon move, but I guess he was thinking that I'd probably quote-unquote over-predict, even though there's no such thing as over-predicting. In my opinion, you just made a bad play. As well, I switch into Heatran, but he makes a very nice play and goes into Gliscor so that he can get some more Poison Heal recovery, as I can't risk losing Heatran right now, so I'm just going to switch into Skarmory, where he predicts that or not, which he does, but he goes for the Facade, which unusual moveset. So Protect, Earthquake, Facade, and now I see Taunt, which is unfortunate since I can't wall with this thing now, so I'm pretty much useless. So he is free to get as much health as possible. He was in the red when I did the Ice Beam, but now it's up to 4, which is unfortunate. But because he showed me Taunts, this will play out to, I can use this to my advantage actually, as he's going to go for the Taunts. Think I'm a calm mindset with Runiculus, but I'm going to go with the Life Orb, Quiet Natured, which is the equivalent to Modest, Psychic, and easily OHKO that thing. This Gliscor is really good this generation, as it pretty much rules half of the metagame actually. That's why you always see it all the time. It's really, really good. Because I am taunted, I'm going to have to sacrifice Gastrodon, as I don't really need it right now for the rest of the guys, and this will give me a chance to get some toxic damage on this Jellicent and switch back into my Runiculus, as I am max HP and I can take at least 2 Shadow Balls I believe and go for Trick Room. But I take the first Shadow Ball very badly, so I was thinking, okay, since I've got Psychic, Focus Blast and Shadow Ball, so Shadow Ball at that amount of health should easily KO it. Right, wrong, which is, oh dear, I cannot die, please, min-max variation please, and I do live, which is excellent. And not only that, this Jellicent will die to the toxic damage, so I won't have to sacrifice another turn of Trick Room. Now here this is where I say the quote-unquote over-prediction comes into play, which that doesn't exist. I make a very bad play, thinking that he would probably switch into the Steel types, Heatran or Ferrothorn, so I could hit that on the switch in, just thinking that he would try and stall out my Trick Room turns, but that doesn't happen. It turns out that he wasn't even thinking about that, so that's a very bad play on my part. I tried to be smart and it failed, so that's just awful, but I'm going to have to try and play around that, since now I know he's going to stall out my Trick Room turns and sacrifice the Heatran, but I'm going to go for the Bulk Up, knowing that he's going to switch into his Latios next turn, just to Draco Meteor me to death, but I'm going to try and get as much damage as possible, as the Stealth Rock is now starting to rack up. Plus the Mach Punch, yeah, +1 should do a decent amount. And down goes my Conkeldurr. So now the score is now 2-2. He has the Latios and Ferrothorn. I've got Heatran and Latias. So I'm going to switch into Heatran now, since I'm just going to try and protect just to get some health back, but he decides to switch out straight off the bat, since he needs the Latios right now to try and win this game. But unfortunately I do have a Dragon and a Steel type, so he's going to be in a very tough situation now, since if he goes for the super effective move on Heatran, my Latias would live. If he goes for the Draco Meter, he actually could have potentially won, depending on min-max variation, as if he got max damage on those Draco Meteors, he would have killed off my Heatran, and since he'll be at -4 with the specs, and at the range of health I would actually die to a -4 specs Draco Meteor with Latias, since max damage does 216 HP, and as you can see I was at 207, but again that was the odds were stacked against him. But either way, that's a very good game, a narrow 1-0, and I lose the speed type obviously because my luck sucks. So actually if my luck sucks, then technically he could have actually potentially got all those max damage Draco Meteors. Either way, that's a great match. QuickBobHero, check him out, he does upload. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the other side.